For my community service, I worked with LEAD, and what we did was assist a Boy with His Eagle Scout project, which involved helping to restore the surrounding areas of Hannah Creek. The first topic that I want to talk about in regards to my Hannah Creek LEAD project is dwindling biodiversity. We know from class that biodiversity is a variety of life in a particular ecosystem, and we also know that invasive species cause biodiversity to dwindle because they take over and kill off the native species of that ecosystem. An example of this that I experienced during LEAD was I was asked to cut down a holly tree, which is an invasive species, and remove its roots from the ground. This is a picture of me doing that here, cutting off the main part of the tree with a saw. English holly is considered an invasive species because it is so thick and dense that it dominates tall shrub layers and suppresses the growth of the native trees. This was very visible when we were cutting it down, as we found strands of branches of holly that had spread from the tree and were growing on top of other plants. We could see the density and thickness of the holly leaves suppressing the plants they were growing on top of. Because the holly trees are invasive and dominate the growth of other plants, it causes biodiversity to dwindle because the plants that are native to that ecosystem are dying off, therefore reducing the variety of life in the Hannah Creek area. Another task I did during the Hannah Creek LEAD party was remove the invasive plant English ivy that was growing up a tree, and you can see a part of that process in the top picture of a tree trunk that is having ivy removed from it. It is important to remove all the English ivy from trees that were encapsulated in it, because the ivy can inhibit the tree's ability to perform photosynthesis. But how might this happen? We know from class that for a plant to perform photosynthesis and produce its own carb, it needs hydrogen, CO2, and ATP to fuel the process. However, as we can see in the diagram, for hydrogen and ATP to be produced, we need sunlight, because those are the two light-dependent reactions. The problem with English ivy is that the ivy climbs its way up the tree's trunk and into its forest canopy, which is all the leaves on the tree, and it blocks out sunlight from entering the leaves. Lack of sunlight inhibits the light-dependent reactions, therefore inhibiting the tree's ability to perform photosynthesis. So it's important to remove the ivy before it has the chance to advance that far up the tree. The last thing I did during the Hannah Creek LEAD project was put mulch down in certain areas of the forest. This task was interesting because originally the mulch was being used for a different project up the hill a ways. However, because of the heavy rain, a few of us stomped down layers and layers of mulch in certain areas to do two things. The first thing was to try and create a more solid and less mushy walking path. The other was to try and prevent runoff. We wanted to prevent all the nutrients and things in the dirt that get washed away in the rain from entering the creek, so the hope was that layers of stomped down mulch would firm up the ground and prevent nutrients from washing away. Yes, mulch can contain nutrients itself, however the idea was to firm up the soggy ground so nothing was being washed away by the rain. It is important to prevent runoff because, as we know from class, runoff leads to eutrophication. The process is pictured above. The nutrients in the water cause algae blooms, and as the algae blooms die, bacteria at the bottom of the ocean use great amounts of oxygen to decompose them. This lack of oxygen creates dangerous dead zones, so again the idea was to use mulch to firm up the ground to prevent runoff and even further eutrophication. To end, these are just a few other pictures from the Hannah Creek LEAD project.